Philosophers and scientists alike have pondered the question, how long is forever? But for Duke Nukem, that question is easy. 14 to 15 years ago and possibly even longer. Duke Nukem Forever was pretty much well known as one of the worst games of its time and basically completely and utterly destroyed a franchise right then and there. And few games can truly say that they killed their franchise right then and there. Because outside of a cameo in Bulletstorm, Duke really has not made a major appearance in any game, period. But despite all that, Duke Nukem is still insanely popular. If you say Duke Nukem, there's a good chance people are going to understand what you're talking about. Because despite what Forever did to his game series, he's still a well-known and beloved character. But why is that exactly? Simple answer, Duke Nukem is a rule of cool character, and thus he is cool by default. I mean, who doesn't love this giant muscly man with big guns?
Lesbians, of course.
That question was rhetorical, but thank you, my least favorite robot companion, who only tries to end my life on every other time of the week. All jokes aside, people do still love Duke Nukem for what he is, and frankly, it's kind of a weird thing despite Duke Nukem's increasing popularity that nothing has really been done with him. No hints of a new game, no remake, no remasters for Duke Nukem 3D, the Manhattan Project, or any other of his games. His franchise has just been completely and utterly dormant for years. And frankly, I think he should make a comeback. But also, I don't think Duke's gonna make a comeback anytime soon for a variety of reasons, but ultimately, we're gonna get into that now. So let's dive right into the topic. Well, before we get into why Duke will probably never make a comeback ever again, let's actually find out why Duke was so popular and frankly, what happened to his franchise. As I mentioned, Duke Nukem Forever was the reason, but Forever's development was insanely complicated. Some of you probably remember the quote, "A rushed game is forever bad, but a delayed game is eventually good." Duke Nukem Forever is basically the proof that that is incorrect. Incorrect hypothesis. Because Duke Nukem Forever was basically in the biggest development hell possible, because inherently the game went through so many revisions, so many changes in directions that ultimately the game just ended up being a complete and utter mess. And it's a miracle it even got released in the first place. And what's kind of funny is that the 2001 version of Duke Nukem Forever is actually kind of somewhat done. The assets later got leaked online and a playable build of the game was leaked, and it looks insanely promising, actually. In fact, that kind of pisses me off that we never got this version, or Gearbox would ever even release this version in a fully finished state. It would print money.
But that would mean giving people what they want, and that is not something we can have in the game industry or any industry, you silly goose.
Alright, I forgot, we can't have nice things in current year. But even still, the main reason why Duke Nukem went through so many changes was because of constantly changing technology, and the publisher, Gearbox, will be a big reason for this. They constantly wanted to keep up with the latest technology, and frankly, this completely and utterly destroyed Duke Nukem's development by just trying to constantly switch engines, constantly keep up with new technology, instead of just making a good game. Ironically enough, Duke Nukem Forever might have done poorly initially, but it would have been remembered as a cult classic. How do we know this? Because Symphony of the Night is this exact situation. While most games on the PS1 decided to go for a more 3D style because, you know, 3D capability, might as well use it. Symphony of the Night instead used 2D graphics, but way used the processor of the PS1 better to increase the space of the worlds. Now suddenly you can do a lot more things with 2D graphics that you previously could not do on a previous console generation. And to this day, Symphony of the Night is still well known and still well regarded. Terrible voice acting and all. It wouldn't be the same without it, in my opinion. So either way, this could have worked. Problem is, Gearbox is a bunch of fucking idiots, constantly wanted to update to new technology. Oh, and how'd that work out? But as a whole, what made Duke popular in the first place was just the fact he's cool. He's basically every 80s character slapped into one. Even his catchphrase is ripped straight from an 80s movie, which also could be a problem. But as a whole, I think that kind of works in Duke's favor. He's kind of a time capsule of a certain time in history, but ultimately, he's every best part of that part of history. Duke Nukem Nukem is just fucking cool. You can slap him in just about any scenario and he'll work out just fine. You can put him in a comedic scenario because inherently he's big buff muscle man. You can put him in a serious scenario and he'd still work. You could put him in a semi-serious scenario and he'd still work. Duke Nukem is basically a jack-of-all-trades kind of character and you can do so much with him. That is why many of the memes, especially the "I've got a peer-reviewed study right here" meme works so well, because inherently Duke can work with that kind of humor. And despite the fact that Duke really does not have that many great games under his belt, the one he does have are very memorable for just Duke Nukem in general. If you take away the Duke Nukem out of a Duke Nukem game, is it really a Duke Nukem game? This is kind of why the original Duke Nukem games are not as memorable, because they don't have the Duke we all know and love. They're probably not terrible games, but they're not Duke Nukem games unless we have the modern Duke Nukem we all love.
Drinking game idea. Take a shot every time he says the name Duke Nukem.
Please do not take any advice from Mimo, she is completely and utterly deranged. So despite Duke's rough history, he could easily come back. Let's say Duke Nukem comes back proper with a proper boomer shooter, like say Doom 2016. He could easily work with this formula, and as we've seen, time and time again, this formula is just solid that if you add your own sort of style to it, it can work. One of my personal favorite examples of this is Postal Brain Damaged. A little bit dated in the humor section, but honestly really fun with its own style, and overall, it is very different from Doom 2016, albeit with a lot of similarities. Duke could easily do the same thing, but make it more crazy, more extreme, and more in your face because this is Duke Nukem. And we don't half-ass things around here. Unless it's forever, in that case we half-ass everything just to get this damn thing out of development hell. 12 fucking years indeed, Duke. 12 fucking years indeed. So with all of that, it seems like Duke is an easy case to bring back and he'll just print money, right? Right? Well, it's a bit complicated. And we'll get into those complications after a brief intermission. So cue intermission time. Oh hi, it's intermission time. You know what that means. No, I still don't. But either way, take this time to go get a snack, use the toilet, and hydrate, or whatever it is you need to do. And here's the part where I talk about the sponsor. But there is no sponsor, and there probably never will be a sponsor, because I didn't build one. What are you going to do now, YouTube scam artists? Either way, we now return to your regularly scheduled programming. Well, I've just stated why Duke Nukem is cool and why he should make a comeback and why, realistically, you can do so much with him. I'm now going to explain why that's never going to happen, and I can sum it up with 2 words: gear and box. Because 90% of Duke Nukem's problems can be traced back to Duke Nukem Forever, which can be traced back to Gearbox. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Gearbox's, controversial history, well, get ready for a history lesson because, yeah, Gearbox has had a long list of controversies, a lot of which delve from the CEO Randy Pitchford being a fucking idiot and not knowing when to shut his mouth. But even without Randy's stupidity, there's a lot of controversy with Gearbox, namely one of their biggest controversies being Aliens Colonial Marines. Namely because that game is kind of so infamous, especially once you know what really went down. Essentially, Sega contracted Gearbox to make an Aliens game. Okay, that seems about right. Then we keep going, it goes through development, and then it releases, and it turns out to be a hot pile of garbage that's so incredibly unstable and buggy that the game is comedically bad. And apparently one of the problems with the game was a typo. Yeah, one of the game's major problems stemmed from a typo. Now, the reason the game kinda ended up like this is kind of unknown. However, it is rumored that Gearbox basically took the money that Sega gave them for Aliens Colonial Marines and instead took it to Borderlands. Now, Gearbox adamantly disagrees and says that this never happened, but then again, are they really just going to say that, yeah, we did that, and open themselves up to lawsuit hell? No, of course not, but would I put it past Gearbox? No, given their track record, that seems about right. But speaking of Borderlands, Borderlands is Gearbox's big cash cow. It's the series that put them on the map. Okay, Borderlands 1 is kind of really hard and kind of okay. It has a lot of problems. Borderlands 2 in the pre-sequel, yes, I'm including the pre-sequel, fuck you, fight me, it's a really good game. I just wish that game had a lot more time in development, and Gearbox didn't fire 2K Australia! 2 was a phenomenal game that basically revolutionized the looter-shooter genre, and was the game that put Gearbox on the map. And honestly, it's pretty easy to see why. Borderlands 2 is a massive improvement to Borderlands 1, in basically everything, really. The pre-sequel, as well, is another good sequel, albeit a little bit undercooked because they didn't really have time to fix everything, and yeah, there's a ton of technical issues in there, but ultimately, I still think the pre-sequel is a really good game. Anything from that point onward,
Wow, it's so bad that your stutter kicked in.
No, I'm just at a loss for words of how to describe how infuriating this whole thing is. Because from Borderlands 3 onwards, although I would argue Tales of the Borderlands did a lot of damage early on, especially to characters like Athena and Janie Springs. Ah yes, let's just strip these characters down of their most interesting traits. Let's just make Athena lesbian character. Let's also take away Janie Springs' interesting character traits, that she's a horn dog, an adventurer, and will flirt with any woman that has a pulse. Yeah, let's just strip her down of that. Let's also take away her black market scrap shop, which, you know, was probably one of the more interesting things you could have done with her in the future. But no, let's just completely throw that away. Let's also take away Athena's trauma and her past and how she's distant and cold from anyone and will not get into any kind of relationship because of her past trauma. And also bring back characters that no one really cared about. So needless to say, 3 did not start the fire, it just threw gasoline on the fire. With 3 completely and utterly destroying any and all interesting traits that these characters had and basically turning them into jokes. Oh, and let's also kill off one of the most beloved female characters and one of the few sirens in the game for this bratty teenager that no one fucking liked. And let's also cut out the one scene that would have redeemed her. Maybe. Let's just strip all that away because haha funny. And while I know nothing about 4, I don't want to know anything about 4. Just to preserve what little I actually enjoy about this franchise that Gearbox hasn't ruined. And don't even get me started on the movie. I don't want to talk about the movie because it's just gonna make me frustrated. Gearbox straight up does not care about their own franchises and completely and utterly destroys them because they're idiots.
Oh, is this the part where you're going to talk about the extra addition to Borderlands that everyone got up in arms about?
No, because this is actually not a Gearbox thing, this is a 2K thing. Yeah, there was a bit of a controversial update to Borderlands, but this was to a bunch of other games as well. What all of them have in common is they had a publisher of 2K. This was especially prevalent in BioShock, which now had its own launcher, which completely and utterly broke a lot of things. And Borderlands was kind of just at the time the latest example of this, and while there was a lot of rumors about it being malware, I cannot verify that for sure, but ultimately it is just extra stuff applied onto a game that does not need it. I don't like it, but at the same time I cannot attribute this to Gearbox because this is more than likely a 2K thing. Now imagine for a second Gearbox got their hands on the IP of Duke Nukem again, because let's be real here, they're not gonna open that vault anytime soon. But let's say, hypothetically, they do. They're gonna do absolutely nothing with Duke Nukem that makes him unique and interesting. They're basically going to lean into all the worst aspects of Duke Nukem and make him a joke. Because they have no talent anymore. Because haha, Duke Nukem is funny, right? You guys like to hate on Duke Nukem. Look at how funny Duke Nukem is. Alternatively, they're gonna make the same mistake with Forever did. They basically say, oh man guys, Duke Nukem is so cool. He's loved by everybody. Don't you know? Power armor is for pussies. They're basically going to not use Duke's strengths to his full potential, and they're going to basically turn him either into a joke, or they, look at me, I am the coolest man on the planet. Not understanding that to be a rule of cool character, you kinda just need to be cool. You don't need the world saying, hey guys, look how cool this character is. That just makes you annoying. and people end up hating you for it. The OG Duke didn't need to prove that he was cool. He just was cool by existing. And unfortunately, this is going to lead into a big discussion about politics and various other things. Except no, I am not going to fall into that trap. Screw your propaganda. I'm not going to talk about this political nonsense. If I'm being honest, the whole controversial thing with Duke Nukem and his babes, as it were, was kind of a non-thing. It's kind of just seems rather forced. I mean, yeah, you can say Duke Nukem gets all the women and that'd be fine and all, but when you kind of make it the focal point, it gets kind of boring. There's not really a lot you can do with it from a writing standpoint. I mean, sure, there might be someone out there who could make it work, but it's kind of just boring. That's not what people like about Duke Nukem. Duke Nukem is popular because he's cool, not because he gets all the babes. I mean, that's a small part of his character, but that's not his entire character. Now you see, I talked about a controversial topic without mentioning politics once.
You technically did twice.
Oh, damn it, you're right. Either way, I don't see Duke Nukem coming back anytime soon because of this. If Gearbox ever does bring Duke out of the vault and gets their grubby mitts all over it again, guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna get ruined and people are gonna hate it. Alternatively, if Gearbox was smart, they'd basically finish the original forever, dig up whatever remnants they have left of the original script, and basically finish the game, release it for $10, and say, here you go, here's some lost media, and put it on Steam. I guarantee you it would sell like hotcakes. But that's the thing, Gearbox is not smart, and thus the Duke Nukem franchise is kind of forever in limbo. And until someone else manages to get their hands on the IP, which, let's be real here, I don't think Gearbox is going to sell the IP anytime soon, because it's my IP, and I get to do whatever I want with it, including doing nothing with it. In other words, we're never going to see an official Duke Nukem game ever again because of this. But either way, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, well, thank you. If you didn't enjoy this video, well, honestly, the fact that you made it this far is impressive, and I at least thank you for sticking around this far. And I hope to see you all next time, if there truly is a next time. And goodbye.